It's really easy to judge people, especially dumb people who disagree with me, right? Can you identify? You know, those people who vote differently than me or believe different things about religion than me. I mean, obviously they're wrong because we're right, huh? It's easy for us to look back even on historical figures and just make snap decisions. They were a bad person because they disagree with me on something. That's happening a lot these days, where we're looking back at leaders of the past who don't add up to our racial standards of equality of 2020. And for people who had a slave or didn't speak out loudly enough against slavery or didn't believe what we believe about rights and race relations, we're tearing down statues and disrespecting everything that they did. Now, that's a really easy thing to do. I mean, take Woodrow Wilson, okay? He's our next president. Woodrow Wilson grew up in Virginia. The very first memory he remembers having is that Abraham Lincoln was elected and there's gonna be war. And that wasn't a good thing because his parents were Confederate sympathizers. He remembers seeing his mom tend to wounded Confederate soldiers, and these guys were heroes to him. He stood next to Robert E. Lee as a parade went past. Like, this is what he grew up in. So when he became president of Princeton or president of the United States, he made lots of anti-civil rights decisions. When he was president of the university, he allowed no black students. When he was president of the country, he blocked civil rights passages. Okay, so when we look at him, it's so easy for us to say, man, that Woodrow Wilson, he was a loser. Okay, he was bad. In fact, Princeton is trying to take down a lot of the memorabilia of him. Like, buildings are named after him, and they're like, we don't want that because he was bad. He didn't agree with what we believe is right as race relations. Well, yeah, he was wrong. But what about women's suffrage? You see, at a time where most men were against giving women the right to vote, where the society was, I mean, I'm reading a biography on Queen Victoria right now, and what everyone was taught at the time could be so offensive to everyone. I mean, they were taught that because women have a monthly cycle, there's a certain time of that cycle where they might be a little bit more emotional, and that's scientific evidence to prove that women just aren't as smart as men, that they can't handle responsibility. And that wasn't just what a couple of crackpots were saying. I mean, that was accepted by everyone. And I mean, can you imagine growing up in this kind of culture? Like, women didn't believe in their abilities, men didn't believe in women's abilities. And Queen Victoria, right after, I mean, she was alive the same time Woodrow Wilson was growing up. And here's a guy who grew up in that same culture, and he was like, you know what? I think women should have the right to vote. I think women have minds that are just as strong as men. They have opinions that are just as valuable as men. And he supported the women's suffrage vote. So if we look at one part of Woodrow Wilson, we're like, oh, ugh, okay, bad guy. I mean, supported the Confederates, supported slavery, did not like black. He was racist. But then if we look at another side of him, we see how he was like fair and equal for women and how he pushed hard and lobbied for women to get the right to vote. I mean, we all love Mom, right? And Mom votes because of Woodrow Wilson. I mean, he was a big part of that. You see, it's so easy for us to take just a small sliver of a person's life and judge them as awesome or bad and not see the complexity. And part of that complexity is what they were brought up in. Woodrow Wilson had some very strong women in his young life. So when people were like, oh, women are dumb, women can't make decisions, he was like, are you kidding me? No, yes, they can. I know. Same thing with his racist views towards blacks. He grew up in a society that was very much against it, that was all about slavery, and I mean, they fought a war for it. Like, and it's so easy for us to not think about the cultural background of a person and try to understand where they're coming from and just make a snap decision. He was definitely wrong when it came to race. He was definitely right when it came to women's votes. So does that make him good or bad? You see, it's so hard to judge other people. I mean, there are people that I'm friends with that I completely disagree on when it's about Donald Trump. There's people I disagree with when we're talking about Black Lives Matter, or talking about religious things, or the second coming, or how the world is going to end. There are things that my wife and I completely disagree on, and a lot of it goes back to how we were raised. Now, is my wife bad because she thinks some things are okay that I think aren't? Is my friend bad because he votes a certain way and I vote another way? You see, the enemy wants to divide us, and there's so many easy ways that we can be divided. Even your best friend in the world, I bet you could come up with something that you completely disagree on. You see, that's why the Bible is filled with encouragements, even commands to worship the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. You see, when we're all focused on one thing, one point, one God, we come towards that God. And as we come closer to him, he starts to take away things that are baggage from our culture. You know, the closer we get to God, the less racist we become. The closer we get to God, the less sexist we become. The closer we get to God, the more accepting and kind and gentle and loving and self-sacrificial we become. You know, some people have asked me, like, do you think only Christians are going to be in heaven? And I don't think so. I think God is going to let people into heaven who've accepted the light that they were given and who wanted to love more. And even though they never said the words Jesus Christ, they lived for him because they lived a life of love. And whether they were Hindu or Muslim or atheist, as they were trying to be better and to move toward the light that they have, I believe that God sees that and he respects it. And we need to do the same thing. You know, it's so easy for me to judge those bad people or those sinners or those dummies that vote the wrong way. And God says, don't judge, love. If God calls us to love our enemies and pray for the people who are persecuting us, what do you think he tells us to do with people we disagree with over race or gender or sexuality or religion? Probably not get in fights and argue. It's so easy to become divided and to just get wrathful and angry and just want to tear people down. Woodrow Wilson was an awful president. But when we do that, we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You know, Jesus died for Woodrow Wilson, just like he died for me. And when Jesus looks at Woodrow Wilson, I don't know the condition of his heart. I know that he was raised up in a racist culture by strong women. So he was racist, but he supported women's rights. What does that mean? I don't know. But it's not my call. My judgment call that I need to make every day is I need to judge God. God, are you worthy to let into my heart? Are you worthy to trust with my fears? Are you worthy enough for me to obey and love that person that's hard to love? That's what we're called to judge. And when we judge yes and walk in the way God wants us to walk, he can use us to maybe change a racist heart, or to maybe give someone a right that they didn't have before, or maybe just to help someone with a burden. God is coming back very soon, and he's looking for people, not who are right, but who want to do anything to love, because that is the ultimate right. Share this video with someone who might need some encouragement today, and subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get an encouraging word every day. And just know that no matter what you're facing, God's got this. He loves you, and he's coming back very soon. God bless.